Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 3 interview mistakes that I've seen the past 5-6 years that I've been running interviews. They're fairly common, but avoiding these can make a huge difference when you're interviewing for a role. So let's get into it. The first mistake that I've seen countless number of times is that the person spends too much time explaining what the company does rather than what they've done at a company. Because interviews are really only, 30 minutes to an hour, you want to make use of every single second of the interview. The people who are interviewing you, like the people that work at the company, have probably already clicked through your resume and have looked at the companies that you work at, and they probably have some sense of what the company does. So there's no need to really go through an in-depth explain the company as a whole and how it works and the behind the scenes. Try to tie in what the company does to what you've done specifically. So for example, rather than saying, okay, I've worked at Healthcare Inc. Healthcare Inc. is a software that doctors can use to prescribe medical stuff to patients, and patients can log into the portal, blah, blah, blah. Instead, what you can do is you can kind of weave in what the company does to the explanation of what you did at the company. So for example, you could say, I worked at Healthcare Inc., where I built out this process to help streamline how doctors redact sensitive information from their patients' portals. This way, the people you're talking to can get a sense of what Healthcare Inc. does, but also a sense of how you kind of played a larger role in building out a process for the company itself. So yeah, mistake number 1, just don't spend too much time explaining just the company itself, because 1, we've probably already researched what the company does, or at least are familiar with it, and 2, you can instead weave in your narrative and kind of explain what the company does at the same time. Mistake number 2 is not asking any questions at the end of an interview, especially if there's time left at the end of an interview. I think it's important to have a few questions in your back pocket that you like to ask consistently, so that the interviewer knows that you kind of are really being thoughtful about how you can be a good fit for this role, but also how the company or the role itself can be a good fit for you. A few examples of questions you could ask is how does this role play a part in the larger organization? What does cross-functional collaboration look like for someone in this role? Could you even describe a typical day of what someone in this role does? There's tons of different questions that you can come up with if you just search online, and just have a few that you feel comfortable asking, so that at the end of the interview you have something to ask that shows that you are still really interested and you're being thoughtful about it. And the third mistake that people I find have made, many times, I've made this mistake too, is not practicing your responses out loud, and therefore being too rambly about your responses. I think one thing that's kind of important to remember is the people you're interviewing with, especially if they're not the recruiter, once you get past the recruiter stage and you're interviewing with people that are on the team, remember that they're taking time out of their workday, which is, they're excited to interview you, but you still want to make sure, like I said before, that you're making the best use of your time and their time. So it's really important to practice saying your responses to commonly asked questions out loud. I have a list of commonly asked questions, or a video of it. I'll go ahead and link that down below. These are questions that get asked all the time. You can also just Google top 10 most commonly asked questions for X role or X position, and actually write out your answers and then practice saying them out loud. You can practice saying them out loud in the shower, you can say it to a friend, but there's a big difference between writing things out and then actually saying them out loud, because sometimes if you're nervous or you haven't really thought it through, you can really take a long way around to get to the point that they're trying to make, and by the time that you've made your point, you've kind of caused the interviewer to check out a little bit, because they're not really sure what you're trying to say, but they're really trying to follow along. So make sure that you've practiced saying things out loud, and that you've kind of structured what you want to say in a way that really gets the core information through to the interviewer, versus adding a bunch of extraneous information that they might not really need. So yeah, those are 3 interview mistakes that I've seen happen countless times. I've made the mistakes before. I've seen them happen in the past. I've been interviewing people 6-7 years now that I'm thinking about it. And it's totally okay that you make these mistakes, because I've definitely made these mistakes, but it's just things to be aware of that you could hopefully avoid going forward, just to optimize your interview experience. If you have any other interview tips or common mistakes that you've learned from in the past based on your experience, Feel free to leave them down below so we can all learn together. I'd love to hear what things you've learned and mistakes you've made but have since, learned how to avoid. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.